Alright guys, Sahel coming to you with another video. I hope all is well with you guys. Now, I just want to make a video and give some post Victory Day reflection because I posted a short with Victory Day festivities in Kazan. But unfortunately, it got taken down because of copyright. I don't know why, but they're like, oh, copyright infringement. So I couldn't basically post it. You know, they wouldn't let me post it. So what I want to do is kind of talk about, I want to kind of speak about, the Victory Day reflections and things like that. Now, I spent Victory Day in Kazan, which was cool. It was chill. The parade, of course, was not on the level of the parade was definitely not on the level of the one in Moscow, but it was still good nonetheless. It was still nice to be at. It was still pretty chill. The one in Moscow, my delegation didn't show up, but I was actually surprised to see. I wasn't surprised to see His Excellency Ibrahim Ratrare there. I wasn't really surprised with that. I was kind of surprised to see His Excellency Christopher Musa, the General of Defense from Nigeria there. I was actually surprised because through the media outlets, you didn't hear that he was going to show up. You didn't even hear that Nigeria was going to show up, right? Now, so the thing is, I'm going to compare and contrast a little bit about the like World War II scenarios. I want to compare and contrast a bit. Now, the thing is that when it comes to the Soviet sacrifice for the end of World War II, it can't be understated. The Soviets were doing the heavy lifting. The Soviets were, had the more casualties, unfortunately. They definitely had more casualties than other people. And it must be said that the effort was a multi-ethnic effort under the banner of the Red Army. Because at the time you had different ones. You had people who were Turkic, of the Kyrgyz, Uzbek, Turkmen, Tatar ethnicity fighting in the banner of the Red Army. You had people who were from the Kavkaz, be it they were Abkhazians, be it that they were Chechens, being that they were Dagestanis, being that they were English, all fighting under the banner of the Red Army. This was reflected in the commemoration of these people and their valiant efforts to stop Nazism. As a matter of fact, if you look, you'll see that there are many who are more, Asian looking, who were being rewarded by His Excellency Vladimir Putin himself, and you can see that. I don't know if any of you guys have Telegram, but you can look in Telegram channel and you can see these things. Now, in contrast, and I hate to say it, but I'm thankful that I had no family that served in the colonial army. I'm very thankful for that. In contrast, though, if you look at those, from former Francophone countries who were conscripted to serve France in World War II, they were treated like crap. And they're still treated like crap because the simple fact of the matter is some of them still are not French citizens. And the thing is with Russia is that, these guys who served in the Red Army, they are now Russian citizens, no matter what the ethnicity is. Yeah. So, with that being said, they were actually recognized for their valiant efforts. Now, granted, there were some things that the Soviet Union did after the war that were very, very bad. The deportations being one of them. Now, that's another video in itself. And yeah, we don't need to mention that. That's a long video, but I don't agree with that crap at all. I don't agree with it, I definitely don't agree with them doing that. That was very, very tragic thing. Now, back to the point, this just, because you have people on Twitter, of course you have people on Twitter, and of course, they're always have, they're always going to throw in their 2 cents, of course, all the time. But you have people on Twitter who say things because, and this is one thing I want to talk about too. This is one thing I want to kind of mention about certain ideologies, okay? And this is why the Victory Day parade brings these kind of things out of, it kind of brings these things out of me. So, yeah, you have people on Twitter that were actually supporting Nazism. They actually were supporting, they're saying, oh, multiculturalism failed, and that the Nazis were actually fighting to prevent multiculturalism. So they actually supported them. And then they proceeded to say, who are these countries controlled by? Because I mentioned that the ideology of Nazism, unfortunately, is not dead. It's well alive in places, of course, in America, Ukraine, United Kingdom, and, Italy too. You have a lot of fascists there. Australia, the state that I don't even consider a state, but people still call it a state, Israel. So yeah, you have this kind of factor. You have this kind of X factor in this situation. So with that being said, right, with this being said, I want to say, with the fact that this ideology is still alive, unfortunately, and is alive with a lot of these people, they take it upon themselves to kind of reinvent and make a revisionist history. So an example of that is in Great Britain, where they had their victory celebration, but they actually had their Victory Day celebration using Ukrainian neo-Nazis, okay? So there was no pushback about it or anything like that, and it just goes to show you that this is ingrained in their ideology. This is ingrained in them as people. Tommy Robinson being an example of this. I don't know if you guys know who Tommy Robinson is, but yes, he would be a prime example of this. Now, now, what was I about to say? Astaghfirullah. Now, in terms of multiculturalism, the thing is in Russia, the thing is in Russia, yeah, you can say it's kind of had uneasiness at times, but it's managed to now kind of find itself. You know, it's kind of managed to get through these growing pains. You know, where I'm living, Tatarstan, Kazan, you know, you have Russians, Tatars, Uzbeks, Tajiks, me being African. Yes, I've seen Africans, other fellow Africans here. You have, you know, Bashkirs. You have different people here in this locality. You really don't have a lot of problems at all with these peoples existing together. In terms of multiculturalism, this is where I think the problems lie. This is where I think the problems lie. And it just kind of made a light bulb come in my head. And this is going to ruffle feathers, but it is what it is. When you take Western exceptionalism, colonialism, imperialism, right? Which is largely the ideology of the majority swathes of Western Europe, and yeah, you can say Scandinavia to a certain extent. When you take Western imperialism and exceptionalism, right? You take Nazism, which exists in America, exists in certain pockets of Western Europe, UK being one of them. As a matter of fact, a lot of people don't know this, but there is actually Nazi lineage in the royal family. I think Prince Philip was one, if I'm not mistaken. He proceeded to set up the assassination of Princess Diana, soon to be father of her kid, which was, of course, deleted in the car crash that was done by M16. MI6 or whatever, British Secret Service. So when you take that element, right, you take the element of, you take the element which largely the Anglo is responsible for. But then you take the element in which the Anglo also is responsible for, which is Islamism, because we know that Anglo money has gone into finance Islamist groups in order for them to have justification to go into countries and take what it is that they want to take. We know that, okay? When you take those, it's like a full circle thing that happens. You fund Islamism, Islamists are wreaking havoc in the country. You go to the country in terms of trying to bring peace to the country and stability, but you don't bring peace and stability. Instead, you create more refugees that come to your country, and a lot of those refugees are having the same Islamist mindset as the right-wing fascists and the Nazis in which you are responsible for. So when you get all of these elements in one place, you have bumping of heads. You have heads bumping one another because they're so similar to each other that they're so similar to each other that, you know, one like basically is like saying, oh, it's either this one exists or that one exists. It's no in between. And because you have that element, it's why you see the problems you're seeing in the in the in the Western Europe. That's why you're seeing the problems you're seeing, right? So that's what you see, and that's what kind of came to my reflection is why is it, right? Why is it that in a city, look, why is it in a city that has mosque where I am, Tatarstan? Why is it in a city that has mosque in masajid on one corner of the street? You walk 5 minutes down, there's another masjid on the other corner of the street. You walk a block down, there's another masjid in another part of the street. Why is it that a place like this can have all these mosques, but have not the problem of extremism brewing in these mosques? Why is that? How is it that we're able to be here? I'm able to pray without being under surveillance. I'm able to go to the mosque with no problem. I'm able to just go and live my life as a regular Muslim. But why is it that, you know, in different parts of Europe, that can't happen? That's the thing. Now, on a final note, I want to add something too. And this is going to be the final thing. America and Great Britain will try to take credit for a lot of the so-called heroics of World War II. But it must be said that America came at the tail end of World War II. They did not come, they were not there at the beginning. You know, well, I mean, they came at the end, and then they decided that, okay, now I'm gonna get my flowers. That's what they decided, right? They decided that at the end, okay, we're gonna get our flowers now. But in reality, they really didn't contribute much to the victory of the they didn't really contribute much to the victory of the Red Army in regards to the war. Hence why Trump tried to create a, I think he tried to create like a holiday or something like that, like 2 more days to honor the heroics or something like that, to try to make some kind of revisionist history with this regards. Now, I want to also say something too, and I'm going to end on this. Note. The thing is that what a lot of people don't know is that even with the war, there were, you know, the Soviet Union, the United States, and Great Britain were at odds with each other. And even after the war, there were talks of, you know, the U.S. conspiring with Great Britain to invade the Soviet Union, because they were like, hey, you know, they just got done with a war, so they're at a handicap right now. They're weakened, and they're not going to even be able to do anything with us. So we might as well take them out too. That didn't happen though. You know, that didn't happen. And instead of looking at them as an ally or looking at them as a friend, they always viewed the Soviet Union as a threat. And so, with that being said, this is why they always had it against them. They always had a bone to pick with the Soviet Union, you know. And it's sad, but this is just part of the history of their this is part of their history, you know. So these are just my reflections on things, and I just, you know, again, there's not really one thing that America or the collective West has done that really has been a benefit to people, you know, people who are brown or black or yellow. Okay? Everything that the West did, like, for example, Emancipation Proclamation, things like that, it was done because it was done for something other reason. It was never done out of the general welfare or care for the well-being of a person. That's the thing, you know. Now, maybe I'll ask a scholar why these people are like this, the way they are. Maybe I'll ask that. Maybe that'll be a question I ask a scholar, like, hey, like, why are these people like this, and why haven't they changed? You know, perhaps he can answer me, but, you know, at the end of the day, it's just, this is just what it is, you know. I don't expect them to learn from their ways if they haven't learned thus far, you know. It's just, yeah, it's crazy, but now the ideology is, of course, taking flight more so with Trump in office and doing all these things and these policies. But, you know, a lot of people will say that his policies don't affect you, and on the ground level, they don't affect you. But, you know, I wasn't going to stay around to see if they did or not, you know. I definitely wasn't going to stay around to see if they did or not. And I pray every day that, you know, Allah will keep me out of there. And I think he will, inshallah. He'll keep me out of there for good. And, you know, I will, you know, do what I need to do. And, yeah, because my intentions, I hope, are pure. And he knows my intentions. And, yeah. But other than that, I don't mean to keep y'all so long. So I would another video, signing out. Leave your thoughts, leave your comments. I'll be back with some more content very soon, inshallah. Jarama.